Mark, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
We all agree, I think, there's not enough prisons, there's not enough prison spaces, really. But these prisons that Angela Rayner's talking about building aren't going to be on stream, if you like, or online for about 6 or 7 years, are they?
No, that's correct, and you cannot build your way out of this population crisis. Probably by next summer, we will be back to the same situation again where we run out of spaces and we'll be at another tipping point. So the sentencing review is coming up when we need to think long and hard about who we're sending to prison and what type of investment in our communities we need to service the public and ensure that victims of crime feel that justice has been served.
Right. Do you feel that the wrong people are getting locked up at the moment then?
Well, when you look at the prison population, Mike, we've got a lot of people in prison because there are not enough secure mental health beds in our communities to service their needs. Prison is the only place to put them. So we could invest heavily in creating more secure beds. We've got IPP prisoners, that's prisoners serving indeterminate prison sentences, many of them 10 to 15 years over their release date. They could go through a resentencing exercise. We could release 3,000 there and free up some space. And then we've got over 10,000 foreign national criminals clogging up our jail cells. Maybe we could repatriate them as well. So there are lots of options available.
Right. And yet, somehow, they don't get sort of accessed. Why do you think that is? I mean, are politicians frightened of moving people out of prisons and sending them off to the country of their origin?
Well, there's several problems with that. One, you have to have the permission of the country where they are from. They have to accept them back. And you have to know which country they originate from because many of them have got no identity or no passport. So it is very difficult. And then, of course, on the other side of the coin, if we do that, they could say to us, well, you can have your criminals back as well. So there's a lot of problems there, but we need to reduce the prison population instead of trying to build our way out of this latest crisis. So
do you agree with Shabana Mahmood then, who said that she wants to build a kind of a prison environment outside of prison and she wants to have more people walking around with, security tags on them?
Well, I think the public and the victims of crime need to be consulted on this because they need to feel that justice has been served for them if they are a victim of crime, and we need robust community sentences that are supervised by professional probation staff, but that needs a heavy investment in the probation service, which is on its knees, similar to what the prison service is. Now, we've warned successive governments for decades that if they don't invest in the prison service, they will reach a tipping point, and everything we have said has now come to fruition.
Is it the case, though, that it's not very efficiently run? Because the NHS, for example, they're always telling us they haven't got enough money, even though they get given £200 billion a year. You know, it's crazy that they don't have enough money. I mean, is it the case that maybe they could make some more efficiency drives in the prison service and make it actually more worthwhile and more kind of value for money?
Yes, we're no different to any other public sector body. A prime example is several years ago, they privatised the maintenance of prisons, they outsourced it. We used to have a works department. We are now 1.8 billion in repairs, outstanding, because we outsourced to profiteers the maintenance of prisons. They are not fit for purpose. When it was in-house, it worked perfectly well. And they did it to try and save money, Mike. It actually cost the taxpayer 3 times more. So that makes no sense whatsoever.
No, it doesn't. I mean, that's the trouble. It seems to me that so many of these businesses, if you like, whether it's the NHS, whether it's prisons, whether it's justice, whether it's the courts, they're just not very well run.
No, they're not. And government come up with these ideas and they're scared to claw back on them because when they realise it is a failure and what we've been telling them all along is true, it's like, I don't want to be embarrassed by the trade unions. I can't go back on this decision. Do the right thing for the taxpayers. Let's start getting efficiency savings in the public sector by bringing things back in-house.
So if you were able to advise Angela Rayner today, what would you tell her to do then? Would you tell her not to build new prisons? Would you tell her to empty the ones we've got and put fewer people away?
Well, once again, Labour are shooting themselves in the foot. It's bad enough they withdrew the winter fuel allowance for pensioners. But now, for example, they're saying to people, we're going to ignore objections to planning. We're going to ignore planning permission. For example, the prison they're going to build in Lancashire, there are already 2 prisons in that locality. A third one will increase the population. And you'll have more prisoners in that locality than you have residents who live there. The local residents are up in arms. It affects the infrastructure. It affects the NHS in that area. It affects everything. start listening to the public instead of not listening to us and upsetting us. And, you know, it's a 10-year strategy, Mike, isn't it, to build new prisons?
Right.
Who's to say Labour are going to be in power in 10 years' time?
I don't think they are. No, I don't think they are.
The way they're going, they haven't had a good start. They're upsetting everybody.
Yeah, well, they really are. And I mean, it's not about, for me, it's not about necessarily party politics, because, you know, the Tories weren't much better, to be honest. But, you know, we need to get away from this backwards and forwards, toing and froing reversal of policy every 5 years, don't we?
We do. And, you know, when they want people to vote for them, they say the right thing, and then as soon as they come into power, they ignore the general public, the voters, and they just plough ahead regardless. But in relation to the prison crisis, the billions of pounds they've earmarked for new build prisons, we could modernise the estate, we could create more secure mental health beds, we could fund a probation service that needs to be funded correctly. We could do so much more, so much better than building 1,700 bed prisons to bang more people up. We need to do things better. We need to do things differently.
OK.